Okay, so there is definitely a way that the College Board wants us to solve this question, and that's what I'm going to do first. But there are a few places where we might be able to take some shortcuts. So the most important thing here is when we have triangles and we have the XY plane, we really are going to be using right triangles, because right triangles are the best kind of triangle for, especially if we're trying to find area, because we need to use the 1/2 base times height formula. But in order to do that, the base and the height need to be perpendicular to each other. So if we don't have a right triangle, we would then just draw an altitude, which is a line that goes through the triangle, which is the height that they have here, and it's got to just be perpendicular to one of the bases, and then now we have a base and a height that are perpendicular. But for right triangles, we don't really need to do that because the two legs of the triangle are always going to be perpendicular. So that's what it's kind of trying to tell us here, is that let's call this leg, let's call it, let's call it X. The length of this thing is X. This is one of the legs. So if we're going to use area equals 1/2 base times height, the length of this is, let's say, the base, and we need, the answer is the height. So that's what these are supposed to be, right? The other leg. So if we had the length of this thing, we could find the height just by kind of solving, because they give us the area is 36 root 13, which is a messy number, but we have a calculator, right? So it's not that big of a deal. So how do we find the length of X? And so the traditional way to do this would be to create a right triangle for this hypotenuse. Basically, this leg becomes the hypotenuse of a different right triangle. So that's confusing. It's not, the triangle I just drew is not the triangle that they want me to find the area of, or that they gave me the area of. It's a completely different triangle, but when we're trying to find the distance in the XY plane, you can use distance formula, but distance formula is not given to you on the SAT or the PSAT. What is given to you is Pythagorean theorem right here, which, surprise, is distance formula. So we're better off just thinking about Pythagorean theorem here. So this is the way I think that the College Board is going to want us to do it. I didn't read the instructions or the explanation for it because I know better than to do that. They make no sense. So we're better off just doing it this way. But instead of doing distance formula and doing anything like that, we're just going to count the boxes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is a length of 9. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. So now I can do another Pythagorean theorem specifically to find the length of X, where 9 squared plus 6 squared equals X squared. So 81 plus 36 is X squared. So let's just use the calculator. 81 plus 36 is 117 is X squared. So X is radical 117. So now I see where these radicals are coming from. So rather than deal with simplifying that, I'm just going to go here. 36 root 13 is equal to 1/2 radical 117 times h. And the h is not in that radical. So I can solve for this. There's a couple of ways to do it. Once again, we can go to Desmos. I think what they're going to want me to do is do some more algebra here. So if we were to do that, before we go to Desmos, I will think, how do I get h alone? Well, I would do two things. I would multiply both sides by 2 over radical 117, right? So the 2 cancels with this 2, the radical 17 on the bottom cancels with the radical 17 on the top. So that's going to work out. So I got to do that on this side. I'm going to squeeze it in, 2 over radical 117. So I'm going to get 72, right? Radical 13 over radical 117. And finally here, I think even College Board would agree, let's go to the calculator and just tell me what that is. 72 square root of 13. And that has to be divided by, good, make sure your divisions are working right, 117. 24. Thank goodness it's a nice number. And that's it. So that's our h. That's the whole thing. We're done. Right? So in a way, it's kind of plug points into equations, but the points are messy. The equation has to come from the reference chart. There's a lot going on. So what else could we have done to simplify this? And look, to be clear, if it was one of these answers, I would have gotten some sort of decimal, and I would have just put those into the calculator as well to see if I get the same decimal. So I at no point in this am I bothering to reduce a radical and to simplify it. I think that that's probably what the College Board would tell you to do, but I think that that's a process that is hard to master, especially if you're in 8th and 9th grade. You might not even have done that yet. So it's a confusing process. So let's see where we could have made some shortcuts. So the easiest shortcut is at this stage right here. I could just let h become an x and solve that way. So 36 square root 13 equals 1/2. The base we said was radical 117 times the height, which we'll call x. So that way now the Desmos is graphing it. It's going to graph it. It's going to solve this equation for me without me having to move anything or deal with anything. It's going to graph a vertical line, and there it is at 24, exactly where I expected it to be. So that's one place where I would have done a little bit of a shortcut to minimize the algebra. So that's one thing. Backing up though, let's leave it. We also, I think this is going to work. If we go to, let's just do this here. Let's put in an A as a point. That's going to be -6, comma, where's the comma? There, 4. So that point is, change colors, this point right here. So I'm just labeling it A so I can use it more easily later, but I'm putting it into Desmos because I'm going to have Desmos find this distance for me, skipping this entire step of Pythagorean theorem. I hope it's going to work. Let's see. I didn't test this out beforehand. So let's put in point B, right? So that's going to be B, and that is equal to 3 is the x coordinate. Yes, 3. And the y is 10. So now I have these 2 points. I think they're right. I hope so. And now if I go to funcs and I scroll, somewhere in here is going to be distance. I think it's near the bottom. There it is, distance under geometry. And let's just do A, comma, B. And 10.81 whatever. Okay. So here's what we could do is we could just take that and put that in this equation, right? That's what I basically would have done. But let's just make sure it's right. Let's actually just do that. So let's go to another line and just type in the square root of 117 and look at that. It's the same number, right? So without doing Pythagorean theorem, without even understanding that I needed that would have been the way to find the distance, Desmos has a distance function that it can do. It can just take the points. There might be other ways of entering it. I like doing this A and B and doing them separately. That way I can see more clearly that I'm entering the points correctly. I'm just nervous always with Desmos that if I try to do everything in one line, it's going to get crazy. But there you go. If you just enter them separately, you can just label them as something, and then it's going to allow you to reuse those labels later in simpler ways. If you've got other shortcuts on this one, let me know. Give me some comments and stuff like that. But I think that this is a hard question regardless. And it just goes to show that Desmos is great. It's going to simplify things if you get used to the different features that it has. However, you still need to understand the concepts that you're going to need to solve. You understand that we need the 2 legs of a right triangle to be perpendicular, that this is not the triangle that they want from us here. So we have to find the distance without even worrying about the other points for the other parts of the triangle. And so there's some other complicated things. And if you can get that, that's the hard part. And then yes, some of the calculations that otherwise would take you more time can be shortened using the calculator so that you have more time for other hard questions because we still got 2 more to go.